I started getting into punk music, actually, when I was just a little teen. I think everybody goes through that phase. And then, jokes on my mom, it never died. When I went to college, couldn't spend 20 grand a semester at my liberal arts college, and I knew that my parents weren't going to help me out at one point. So I was just like, all right, I'm on my own, and I guess I'm leaving. And I packed up my dorm room, and I left. I traded poetry and music in exchanges for places to sleep, which is the most punk rock thing I've ever done. And I kind of have to romanticize that part of my life, because if I don't, obviously there's a breakdown that comes with that. Nobody deserves to be homeless, much less when you're in a wheelchair and you're kind of just trying to get by, like literally in some narrow hallways, and metaphorically because you're overcovered some not so physical barriers as well. Right. But that's what I did for about a year and a half, 2 years before officially moving out here to Minnesota. And I told myself that I wanted to get back into spoken word poetry. Really, really wanted to get back into music. So I really owe the local Minneapolis music scene a lot for believing in me, and for telling me that I do have an ear for it, and for telling me that I can do it. Because before, when I was in a punk band, I actually, I traveled a lot. I was in a punk band in Chicago. I fronted the band. I wrote the lyrics. I wrote our PR. Things like that. I was everybody's backbone. I got a lot of, for lack of a better phrase here, shit for it, seeing as I can swear on a podcast. I was done with it because they would blame me for turning down gigs that would not be in accessible spaces, or, we'd show up and clearly in my PR photos, like, I'm sitting there in my wheelchair flicking off the camera most of the time, hashtag my aesthetic. And then I'd be like, why did you book us if you're unable to accommodate? Why did you book us? And then that led to the band breaking up. I'm friends with one of my band members now. He's grown up a lot. His name is Mike, and we keep in touch via Facebook and everything. I was not expecting my EP to kind of blow up as fast as it did, to be honest with you. Next thing I know, like, we're being played in Australia, and I'm like, what is this?
Excellent. And now, Adina, you just kind of jumped right into it. Thank you so much. This is the 9 O'Clock Meltdown podcast, and over speakerphone I have Adina? Yes. Oh, my goodness. Okay. We were laughing about your name earlier and all the mispronunciations it has. And now you are in a punk band. You front a punk band out of Minneapolis. You have an EP that's out. And actually, we connected over Facebook via your new bassist, also known up here as Kat Fox. She's a fellow kind of punk artist down in Minneapolis. She's rocking the Minneapolis scene and still does rap now and again as well. That's kind of how she became known up here and cut her chops into the music scene. And now she's your bassist. How did the two of you meet?
We've actually kind of talked off and on about how crappy the scene is. Just for a couple of years, us Jewish women love to fetch every now and again. And so I was just like, oh, this is great. Like, I love the fact that, like, we can listen to each other. Like, the first time I met her, like, face-to-face, I was like, okay, you're adopted now. Like, let me know if you need basketball soup or anything. Like, just so you know. And then she sent me a text, and she was like, you truly are a Jewish grandmother, thank you. Because at the same token, I was like, you need the recipe for a hot toddy? Because I got you.
Nice.
So, yeah, and the poor thing is getting her tonsils removed
Oh.
as an adult, which is a complete and utter bitch. So we wish her the best of luck, and we won't be bothering our sleeping cat until January, and we will have somebody filling in, but obviously nobody's going to replace Cat. Cat's attitude, Cat's kind of bite is kind of what I need. And that's why we get along so well, I think, because she carries that same bite, that same don't mess with me kind of aura. I like that. I don't like, I don't like women that are threatened by other women. I'd rather be around women that are going to lift each other up, and that's exactly what we're trying to do in this band. And obviously I have my fiance as my guitarist, and then we have a little 18-year-old drummer who is just a blast and a half to play with, because he's such a little baby, but he's so excited to perform. I'm like, have your mom and dad heard you practice? Because what you certainly practice isn't noise. It's not noise, kid. Like, you have skill for it. And he taught himself how to play in about a year. So I was like, all right, Mama Shiva is taking you under her wing. Hope your parents don't mind. Bye. Playing our first show was really great. The bar was packed, and then obviously I got Christine Hornberg to, open for me. And I actually followed her career, while I was in Michigan, because I was one of those, hey, do you know this musician? Because I do. You don't. That kind of thing. Obviously, I'm ashamed of it now, but, having one of my idols open for me and be like, I love your music is amazing. I really, really thought that it was really cool. And all the bartenders at Palmer's are just so great. Everybody was so great. And they were there for the subliminal band banter, because, everybody hates the band banter that's so blatantly in your face. And so I was just like, you know what? I'm going to lock eyes with everybody in this audience while I take a sip of my gin and tonic and then go into the next song. Okay? Great. I'm establishing dominance right now.
And yeah.
So,
and let's actually jump into your band name. Now, Sheba, and I've also been reading a bit on your Facebook page as well. You also dub yourself the Queen. Now, is it Queen Sheba, or is it just the Queen?
Okay, so the Queen of Sheba, it comes actually from the Torah. She's not mentioned very much in the Torah, but a lot of men had to, through riddles, and she'd be like, okay, solve this riddle, and then I'll be your wife. And she's seldom mentioned, and as a disabled person, I feel like I'm seldom seen a lot of the time, and when I am, no matter what I do, I'm making a statement, especially as a younger disabled person. If I'm out having a good time, it's almost like able-bodied people are like, whoa, oh my God. I was just kind of like, you know what, I'm sick of that. Each time somebody lifts me up in my manual chair, particularly if it's a group of attractive people, I'm like, yes, this is the Queen of Sheba move, because they're lifting my chair up. And so it's kind of an empowering joke, if you will.
Okay.
To sit here and call my wheelchair the throne, because it is how I get around. and I carry myself with an air of importance even when I'm sitting down, because that's how I want to be perceived. I don't want people feeling sorry for me. I want people to be like, hey, look at that badass bitch up there. Look at her doing that.
Does your disability kind of fuel your fire a little bit? I mean, it almost kind of sounds like it was a very early on kind of decision that you made, that this will be part of who I am, yes, but this is not going to define me.
My disability didn't, unfortunately, until I got older.
Okay.
I still deal with internalized ableism. I grew up in a very ableist household, and then immediately, my bubby believed in what I could do in terms of writing. Like, I have 2 books written.
Oh,
One of
wow.
them is going to be mentioned in Minnesota Academia in terms of disability and sexuality, and it's going to be helping save disabled lives and start the conversation when it comes to having a disability and experiencing sexual assault.
Oh, okay.
And I find that very, very empowering. So I owe all of my strength to my grandparents, actually, in that regard, because they were the ones who told me that I could do anything. What I really wanted to do was write. What I really wanted to do was act and be on stage. And, I wanted to be the center of attention, but not for negative reasons.
Okay.
I didn't want to be stopped in the middle of Walmart anymore for a prayer, which has happened before.
Oh, geez.
I didn't want that. I want to be stopped because, hey, I'm a good writer, or hey, are you so and so from such and such? Yeah, hell yeah, I am. Versus like, oh, let me feel sorry for this girl. I've already dealt with that narrative a lot, and a lot of the internalized ableism part comes from feeling sorry for the parents of the disabled individual. I know that one of the things that hit me really hard while I was dealing with internalized ableism in therapy, yes, I go to a therapist. Everybody should during their lifetime.
I
It's
agree to
great.
that. Yes.
So, while I was unpacking that, I was being picked up from my medical ride, and I noticed that this little girl in a hijab and Hello Kitty stickers all over her pink wheelchair. My first power chair was pink. And instead of connecting with her, I looked at her mother with sympathy. And that was when I broke down and I cried, because her mother doesn't have to live with it. This little girl does. And that's what we really have to keep in mind when it comes to an able-bodied neurotypical society. We don't talk about that enough. I feel it lit the fire underneath my already sitting down ass, and I was just like, all right, let's go. Let's do the same.
So is that what inspired you to write this book? Kind of that moment and these moments leading up to it? I know you had mentioned that you're a published author.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like, I want to prove to myself and to other people that I can do these things and I can do them well. So much so that, like, I was trained by an opera singer for like 2 years before I dove into punk singing again. She helped me with my diction for all of my spoken word deliveries, and I got second place here during one of the local shows, which is kind of a big deal. And then, down the road, I got offered to take my work to New York, and obviously because I live on a fixed income and I'm a millennial planning a wedding, I had to say no. It made me see that, like, oh, okay, these people actually see talent in what I'm doing, and they want me there. And at the same time, like, little me is going, what the fuck? Like, who are you? But I think my number one goal, and I think everybody's number one goal should honestly be like, would 9-year-old me think I'm awesome?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think 9-year-old you would think you're pretty cool.
I think little me would. I think little me would give me a high five. Maybe look at me funny for my nipple piercings and my mohawk. That is gonna come back after the wedding, but like, I think she'd be proud of me, and I think that's what really matters.
Good, excellent. And now, Adina, you said that you were wanting to be an author and a writer, and that's really what you gravitated to. You do spoken word poetry as well. I guess what really gravitated you towards writing? You said that you've got 2 books published. We talked about the first one a little bit as well. That's coming out, it sounds like. So really, what kind of lit that fire and gravitated you towards writing, I guess, before punk music?
Honestly, it was always music and writing. I think they go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would obviously, like, it was me and Bruce Springsteen records, and if you don't think he's punk, come at me. Come at me, bro, because he is. He inspired me to tell stories lyrically. I would sit there and write lyrics and melodies and not really know what I was doing. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But I would sit there and establish them. I would sing these little songs that I wrote as a child, and people would be like, "What are you singing?" And I'm like, "I don't know, just something I made up." So it's one of those things. And then like when it came to writing, I often wrote stories to escape my reality back at home.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, I grew up in a really ableist, toxic environment. That's not new if you've read my piece, Burden, which is in my first book, and you've seen it on YouTube. Like, it's there, it's out there. It actually, like, got a few of my family members to call me up and be like, what did you do that for? And I was like, well, I'm an adult now, so, it was being seen and being put out there and being heard. Mm-hmm. And I know for me personally, it's hard to sit down with an abled audience, not expect the disabled person or not expect the minority to kind of talk down to them.
Okay.
And I'm not here to talk down to you. Mm-hmm. I'm here to tell you that what you're doing is kind of fucked up and kind of wrong, and you are intelligent. I'm not here to hold your hand through, and teach you like, oh, hey, what you said was wrong, bro. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not going to give you a dog treat or a free drink, much less because you decided, like, to apologize for saying something ableist, anti-Semitic, sexist. I'm not here to pat your back for being a decent human being. You should be a decent human being, period.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Right. And now I listened to a couple snippets of your EP, and immediately I was blown away. One, that you're a chick with, I think the picture I saw was red lipstick. You had a mohawk, and then it was leopard print, for one. Applause for you for pulling that off. I know I never could. But no, your EP, the snippets that I heard, it's very old school. And when I say old school, I'm not really talking about, 2004 punk.
Right.
I am talking about 1990 punk, that kind of scream in your face, can't really
kind of feel. Yeah.
Yes. You can't understand the lyrics. Yep. Mm-hmm. Was that really the angle that you wanted to hit with this EP? Or, are you looking at maybe putting out something softer later on down the road?
I was told by a Metro Mobility bus driver that I sound like Kathleen Hanna and Patti Smith had a baby and threw up. And that was honestly the highest compliment that I could have ever received in my entire life. I was like, yes, I have ascended. This is my goal. And I do plan on releasing some softer songs down the line because, like I said, I'm influenced by Bruce Springsteen. Come at me. Like, I think it's the Jersey and New York in me still. You know, I still have that loud voice in my leather jacket. So I think I can and will release a softer album. You know, and maybe include those in my LP. And then my upcoming book that may take a while to publish, obviously, because I'm so busy with this EP, and I can't believe we were immediately, like, offered a seat at a residency at Dusty's, like, on the 18th. Like, I was just like, what's happening? Because I did not expect, A, for us to be playing fucking Australia, B, like, any of that. Like, I didn't expect that. I expected basement shows. I expected, like, whispers of our name every now and again. I expected that. I did not expect, like, oh, okay, here's this. We really think you should put it out. Like, here this all is. Because I worked on it for about a year. Then I was working on a play for about a year. And then I was just like, here, this sound needs to be brought back because it's very quintessential, I feel. And it's very, like, we need to give Jewish women in general, you know, the women of color who have molded this space for punk rock and rock and roll to start this dialogue. And so we're kind of turning the clock backwards on purpose. And I kind of like that.
Yeah. And now if we can just kind of launch, I don't want to take up all the time with a political commentary or maybe a social commentary. I guess what do you mean when you say African-American women are molding the punk scene?
Well, they have been. Afro-punk has always been there. And, you know, it wasn't Chuck Berry that invented rock and roll. It was a bisexual woman of color.
Oh.
And unfortunately, like, people don't know that. They give Chuck Berry all the credit. Like, as a white passing woman of color, I'm not here for that. So I'm just like, no, you know what? I'm going to be visibly Jewish up here on stage. I'm going to wear my kippah. You know, here's what started this, and here's what's keeping it moving. And I'm sorry, whiny bros that want to talk about their girlfriends through their nose. It's not your music to claim. I don't think anybody's music belongs to anybody. I think it's shareable, but in order to remain shareable, you need to create space for it.
Right. So essentially you're trying to kind of break down those barriers and those pre-constructed molds of, you know, who should be doing what and who should be singing what.
Exactly.
Well, Adina, I think you're doing it very well. I mean, like I said, I heard a couple snippets of your EP and I'm absolutely blown away. Also, to your comment of that you're getting some love from Australia. Of course you're getting love from Australia. That's where all the criminals went. Of course they love rock and roll and punk music and all of that.
I know. And so I was blown away, which is a commentary on remaining complacent, rather, to white supremacy. Dressed Too Tight, which musically I wrote it as a panic attack. And like, I sing it like a panic attack because it's about sexism within the industry that you encounter as a female musician. Just like, okay, I'm gonna sing this like a panic attack. I'm gonna like hyperventilate. I'm gonna do that whole shtick, and hopefully hopefully somebody gets it. And luckily people get it. People love it.
And I can attest to the sexism. I mean, it's not just in the music scene. It's not just singers up on stage. I mean, that transcends, to other parts of the industry as well. Not only radio, but doing sound, being a booking manager. It does really transcend kind of across the board. And even it transcends to the 9-to-5 office jobs as well, still to this day.
Right. And, I've competed against, male poets that'll sit there and be like, and talk about rape and sexual assault, and they'll be praised. Mm-hmm. But the moment that a woman does that and talks about her own assault and how somebody invaded her body, mm-hmm. it's like, oh no, not another rape poem. When you just praise, like, this man siding with rape victims, mm-hmm. not even 2 minutes ago.
Right.
And then the moment that a woman takes the mic and decides to tell her story, you knock down points. Mm-hmm. Why is that? And we really need to have a broader discussion about those things, especially, I feel, in the arts. Like, no matter what you're doing, if you're doing lighting, if you're sitting there, and if, like, I wrote a play and it took a year, I co-wrote a play and it was amazing. Mm-hmm. I did that especially as, like, a queer woman, a queer Jewish woman making commentary on golems and how golem used to be a slur in our Jewish community. Mm-hmm. Like, I took up that space. And to know that is to feel empowerment, but we shouldn't apologize for the amount of space that we take up mm-hmm. in the first place.
Yeah, we should be sharing that space. I exactly. Couldn't agree more. I could not agree more. And now, Adina, how long have you been in Minneapolis? I know you had mentioned that you hail from the Chicago area.
So I lived in Michigan for the majority of my life after my family moved from Pennsylvania to New York. Surprise, we're Jewish. So Adina it is. And then I did traveling to Chicago, and then I literally bought a one-way ticket from my Michigan dorm room, and I was just like, okay, I need a one-way ticket out of here, or else I'm going to remain in this toxic environment where my parents still think they have control over me, despite the fact that I'm entering my mid-20s, and that's not okay. I want my autonomy. Mm-hmm. So I basically told my friends that I was going home, or I was going away for spring break, and that I'd be back. The one-way ticket. I never came back.
Oh, what made you settle on Minnesota?
Chicago is way too expensive, and at the time, my buddy Mike was like, you know what, it's way too violent for you up here, and the housing wait list is crazy. And then New York, I do have, like I said, some family around the Pennsylvania, New York area. Mm-hmm. Y'all should try having a phone conversation with them if you think I'm loud. Because, oh boy, there's no way in hell I'm paying this amount of rent to live in a Chinese takeout box.
Oh.
A part of me still has that dream where, like, because I filled out a wait list to be on housing for New York. That's just how being disabled works. Okay. You have to fill out a wait list and see if you're accepted and all of that. Mm-hmm. So a part of me is still active on that wait list just to see if I can get in. Mm-hmm. Just to see. At the same time, I ended up meeting a great person, and I ended up meeting, a great family to go along with it.
Wonderful.
And now I'm like, well, fuck, I'm settling down.
Excellent. Wonderful to hear.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And now he's a Minneapolis man?
He is a Minneapolis man. He originally lived in Lino Lakes for a while and explored Chicago for a bit. Went to art school, went to film school, did that whole bit. And so we're both like liberal arts students that like eventually let go of the liberal arts because we realized like, oh, okay, we can teach ourselves these skills and be just fine.
Right.
Like ultimately, like that's what I had to do in order to really make money in terms of what I'm doing. And I am making money, and I'm formulating my own schedule, but it's great.
Excellent. Good for you. Applause for all the independent artists out there. This is wonderful. You've got two books. One is in the works. Another one's already published. Sounds like you've got poetry going on. You have an EP that's going to launch here. And you've got a plethora of other things going on. This is absolutely fantastic. And now, you had mentioned at the beginning of the interview that you, for the basis of 2 years, you kind of lived like a gutter punk. Gutter punk is dead. There's not a plethora of us punks living in the gutters, for lack of a better term. But it is still out there. I mean, did those experiences kind of shape your music and your writings in any way?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Especially because a lot of Jewish people live in the diaspora, and so I really channeled my faith for that, for the other Jewish misfits, if you will.
Okay.
Because I definitely felt like I didn't really belong anywhere, and we all live in this diaspora, and when the shooting happened in Pittsburgh, it was just like an outpouring of community. No matter which branch of Judaism you were at this vigil, and there was a long line, and it was just an outpouring of like these. This is my community. This is who it is, and it was the same thing with finding like gutter punks that would actually humor me, and some of them were like white suburban moms that were like, "Hey, come in, you Patti Smith knockoff," and I was like, "All right, what's up?" And I kind of joked because she started out as a spoken word artist too, as well as Kathleen Hanna. And then nobody ended up showing up to their poetry readings. I'm lucky enough to have people actually show up to my poetry readings because, newsflash, I'm hilarious and I'm also a really good writer. And so that helps break the ice and kind of ease the tension a little bit. In fact, when I did my show at Palmer's, I kind of, I know my wheelchair is a pink elephant in the room, and I'm not gonna sit there and I'm not here for your pity. And so I wore a "I'm not your inspiration" tank top, and my pleather pants, and I just kind of broke down the ice, and my friend Dylan Marcus of Edward the Confessor, great band, was adjusting my mic, and at the same time, like, I was getting served a gin and tonic. I was like, this is true allyship. This is what you should be doing. And it was just like, it was kind of off the cuff band banter without being so much in your face about my disability, because my disability does shape my artwork. It does shape my life experience, and to deny that would be ludicrous. So, I just kind of painted the elephant pink with some polka dots, and it was well received.
Excellent. Wonderful. And now, where can people find your EP? Is it up on Bandcamp? Are you going to release it on iTunes?
It's up on Bandcamp. We're going to release it on iTunes soon. iTunes, iHeartRadio, everywhere. Spotify, it's going to be on there, and I'm probably going to flip out as soon as the somebody's playlist.
Excellent, excellent. And now that is under the name Sheba, correct?
Sheba, yep, with a 3 because we couldn't do Sheba with an E because of the cat food. But, like, just in case the cat food, like, company needs a punk rock jingle, we're all about punk rock cats, so they should hit us up.
Sounds great. Sounds great. All right. Well, it sounds like you have a lot going on, my dear. I mean, you've got a book that's in the works. You're just waiting for that to be published. You're going to release your EP onto iTunes and the plethora of the internet here. It sounds like you have a residency going on down in Minneapolis as well. You're planning a wedding. What is next for you? Are you going to kind of hibernate for the winter a little bit or keep plugging along?
I'm going to keep plugging along, preferably on my book and my music. I do a lot of writing when I'm kind of hibernating just to keep myself busy because I like remaining busy, and you'll probably see me on the slopes skiing. That's something that my Bubby loved to do, and so I picked it up from her. No problem. So
Wonderful, wonderful. And Adina, if somebody's interested in booking you guys for a show or maybe hearing some of your poetry, how can they do that? What's the best form of contact?
So if you want to book me or reach out to my manager, you can either talk to me directly or my manager through Facebook Messenger on either of my pages. Shiva, once again, with a 3 is the band name in all caps. And then if you want to talk to me directly or once again with my manager, just Adina Burke Booking at gmail.com is where I'm found and where I kind of keep track of all of my documents and all of my dates and stuff.
All right. Excellent, Adina. Excellent. And now let's touch base really quickly in kind of being an independent artist. I know I've talked to a lot of independent artists and some not so independent artists as well. But, you know, they've all said the same thing, that the internet has kind of opened the floodgates and things are a lot easier to do now. I mean, even for example, right now I'm doing a podcast. Basically, I'm doing a radio interview in the comfort of my living room with my laptop.
Right.
I mean, this is how accessible things are. Yes, there's a little upfront cost to it, but I mean, with you, it sounds like you're going to launch your music onto iTunes and SoundCloud and Spotify and things like that. Are those really difficult things to do? I mean, what's your take on this new kind of independent artist wave?
I personally really like it. But I do know that it's harder to get your name out there simply because you're kind of, you know, you have to pave your own way and you have to fight for your spot. But as somebody, especially with the disability, just to have this access and to have other people have the same amount of access and to not be discriminated against because of a lack of access just means a lot to me. So whenever I see people, particularly of the, I'm just going to say it, of the okay boomer generation, kind of shit on technology. I'm like, do you realize that, like, without this technology and without this level, you wouldn't be able to play games with your grandkids over the computer, and you wouldn't be able to connect with your friends online? Like, this is what really opened the gates for me in terms of being more social, more out there as an activist. You know, like, you're talking to somebody who climbed the Capitol steps and protest earlier within this year and had it live streamed while the cops were being called on me. So, I mean, it makes my activism more visible and it makes me more visible, and that's what's really important. And I think that's what really needs to be seen. Is just people need to be more visible, and people are making it easier to have their stories told. Does that mean we have a plethora of stories and a plethora of music to cut through and kind of have to mold ourselves and cut through all the kind of grassroots kind of thing? Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, I'm okay with that because I know that I'm strong enough to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But not every person is, and not every person knows how to navigate it. And I'm still knowing how to navigate it. But at the same time, I'm like, you know, so what if I'm nearing 30? I'm still punk, and you know, we plan on actually, when we move out of this apartment, having a basement studio for my band and other bands to just, you know, because no matter what, no matter how old you are, the art never dies. And I think that's what the internet is more or less proving. There's more voices, there's more diverse voices, and there's more out there than you perceive to be if you just look for it.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Wise words. Adina from the band Sheba, hailing out of Minneapolis. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and this afternoon to talk with us and kind of share your experiences and share your music and your thoughts on the world today. Thank you.
Not a problem. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I greatly appreciate it. Gotta love a podcast.
Oh, yes. Always, always. All right. Well, I will talk to you soon, my dear, and good luck with everything.
Same to you.
All right. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.